Thank you for having me. We'll spend the next 40 or so minutes talking about the social space, but that's not to imply that it's more important than the mothership, the FM AM stick. I tell this to everybody that I spend any time with. Please don't mistake this as being more important. Don't even mistake it as being equal to the mothership. The social space is there to complement the values that you have as a brand. It is not a free distribution platform. So if anybody is wondering, can I sell Facebook status updates? I hope the biggest takeaway that you get from today is that the social platforms should never, ever be looked at as free distribution platforms. Hopefully you'll get why I say that at the end of this. Understanding the platforms in the social space that we have today, that's not our challenge. John Guerin, you probably rattled all of them off last night at dinner. We all know by now there's Facebook, there's Twitter. Even with this joke, there's YouTube, there's a mobile app, there's Pinterest. Everybody in the room can pretty much rattle off every social platform there is. So it's not necessarily knowing what the social platforms are and really what to do with them. That's not really our challenge in radio. What it is the social dynamic of human behavior. That's what we're completely overlooking. Our challenge is not with the social platforms. Our challenge is in understanding the social dynamics that happen. We have Facebook. Facebook, everybody knows, is the monster. It's the platform where everybody is. In fact, we operate in a culture today where more people check Facebook than read the good book these days. Zuckerberg, the CEO, most recently said 143 million people in North America check Facebook every single day. 143 million. That is huge in comparison to the 40 million who say they read the Bible every day. So you kind of know the culture that we are now operating in. You know, for better, for worse, Facebook is the monster. That's pretty much where everybody is. 73% of all Americans will say that they are on Facebook. If you drill it down and you look at Jacobs Media's Tech Survey 10, which will be revealed next week, you guys will get a lot of first here today with that. It's 95%. So if you drill it down, you look at the 73% of overall Americans, drill it down to core radio users, people who are in your radio databases, 95% say they're on Facebook. So we all get it. Facebook is the monster. However, there's some fatigue, and I'm sure that you guys may have heard it through the past few months. There's something called Facebook fatigue happening. A lot of the younger generations are starting to shy away from it. And I'm not sure that we're paying attention to why the fatigue. It's not because it's not cool anymore. And it really isn't because I'm there. I have a 13-year-old. True story, I've never heard the most horrible screech in my life until probably 6-7 months ago, when I innocently liked my daughter's status update. Oh, that's cute. Look at Carly. I'm going to give that a little like. I hope everybody knows what liking something on Facebook means and looks like. I heard the roar of thunder, blood, shearing. What is going on? I ran upstairs and her hair was standing up. You liked my status update. You are never, ever to like anything. But I birthed you. I raised you. I can't, no. Stay. And to that day, that child has never gone back to Facebook.com. But really, beyond parents, just ruining the whole experience for them, many people will tell you it's too much. It's too much people talking about themselves. Whether it's people, whether it's brands, it's too much. People really do view it as communication. It's too much when it's just me, I, over and over. So the art of conversation has been lost because, again, as brands, getting back to radio, we're looking at it as a free distribution platform, and it's not. It's a way to be a part of your fans' lives. It's a way to showcase the values that they place in your brand. It's not there to spam them. So with the Facebook fatigue, people are starting to, and again, it's more, you'll see it with Tech Survey 10, it's more of the younger generations. a lot of them are starting to gravitate towards this smaller platform. In comparison to Facebook, Twitter is very, very small, but if you look at the numbers, it's actually pretty healthy. And it's a great platform, but it's different, and I'll show you why it's different from Facebook. But here's why Twitter. We won't talk too much about Twitter today because it is very complex, and it takes a lot of one-on-one time to understand it. But just a couple of highlights. 30% higher brand favorability when you interact with fans. Not what you say, how you make them feel. Tech Survey 10 shows you 30% higher listening by fans who are acknowledged by their favorite radio stations. This is an interesting stat that we'll be talking about for a few months. I asked Fred early on with Tech Survey 10, can we add a question this year? I need proof. I try to tell clients all the time, there's got to be a correlation between making fans feel seen and heard and more listening. There's got to. But while Nielsen and Social Guide are trying to work on this correlation for TV, everybody's ignoring radio. So how can we ask it? I'm not a research person, but how can we find it out? My heart of hearts believes that when you make people feel like they matter, they gravitate towards you more. Again, it goes back to the human element of the social space. So why wouldn't it be like that with a fan and a brand? So he said, okay, we'll ask it. And then the next day, I said, maybe we shouldn't ask it. Because what if everybody says, I disagree, then my gig is up and I'm back to programming radio stations. And he said, I think it'll turn out. I hear what you're saying, I think it'll turn out. And what you'll see when it's revealed next week is 30%. And I thought that was a perfect number. It was probably like 20% agreed and 10% strongly agreed. Again, it was more women and it was more of the younger generation. So that's a very interesting story in itself. But why social? That stat alone shows you it's clear brand loyalty, listener acquisition. That stat alone shows you. If 30% say, yes, I find myself listening to radio stations more when they interact with me. Remember, the key is not what the radio station said, it's how the radio station made them feel. And another stat, sports radio, alternative, CHR, rock, huge, over-indexed with Twitter. So when you're thinking Twitter, allow research to inform the strategy. Don't just jump on it and do whatever you think is right. Really kind of dig in. Look at the stats of why it benefits you, but also why it benefits the fans. And then there's other platforms. We've all heard about them. We've heard about Instagram, Snapchat, Vine. We're a very, very much a mobile culture. And these platforms are absolutely platforms that you want to jump on at some time. But social's not about being everywhere. It's really, again, having a strategy and a purpose as to why you're even there in the first place. But moving down the road, you'll want to consider the mobile apps. Everybody's so mobile. I just read a stat as we were setting up. Some media company just did research and said that 40% of people admit that they consume their content mostly when they're eating. That's what we're doing. We're looking at our phone and we're shoving food in our face. We have to realize the culture we're operating in today. So let's look at why people enjoy Facebook and Twitter. We'll just focus on those two today. That is the most important thing. It's important to know where your audience is so you're not wasting time. If your audience is just not on Twitter, it's really, don't even understand the purpose of being there. But beyond where they are, why are they there? I've said this for years. Again, this will be fresh research that nobody's really laid out to radio, because the privilege of my position at Jacobs Media is I get to do this 24/7. I no longer have a radio station to run and sales to manage and talent to cage and promotions to shoot down. I just get to do this. I just get to read tweets and look at what resonates and look at what makes you roll your eyes. And really what I study is not the platforms, but the human behavior. I study why people share what they do. What are the emotions that are triggering people to share our radio station content? But again, this is great research to take back home, reasons for enjoying Facebook. Number one, hands down, connect with friends and family. We all probably inherently know that in the room, but here for the first time, you are seeing research that people are like, no, it's not for brands, it's not for contests, in case we'll talk about that in a second. It's for friends and family. It's not for your Katy Perry tickets coming up at 2:15 status updates. It is for friends and family. You want to fit in, emulate the dialogue of my friends and family. Otherwise, I'm ignoring you. So that's what they're saying about Facebook. With Twitter, it's fascinating. It's completely different, in which I love because it kind of takes a hit on our family and friends. It's not about family and friends on Twitter. It's about interesting people. Think about that statement. They go, no, friends and family over here, fascinating people over here. And that truly is Twitter. Twitter's transactional. It's not personal. Twitter's the corner bar, where if Facebook is the living room, where they only want the dull friends and family, nothing offensive, don't get in my face. On Twitter, they want excitement. They want fascination. It's the corner bar. They want to high-five each other. That's why sports radio and Twitter go hand in hand. It just really is the greatest opportunity for sports radio is Twitter. Facebook is not really for sports radio. So I love this. So you understand now why they're there. The most important thing, why are they using it? But what does radio do all too often on the social platforms? Contests, prizes, win this, tickets to that. How many times do you fire up Facebook, if you even do, or ask the folks who work for you? How many times do you see contesting on our radio station Facebook pages? And look at what what's beautiful about this, these are core radio users. These are radio's P1s. These are radio's Uber people. This isn't the Pew Research general population. These are people who still value what we love. Prizes is so low, we have to remember that. It doesn't mean stop doing it. It means we have to find a way to do it that fits into what they want. They don't want to see prizes, but I guarantee you it's all in the approach. If you emulate their dialogue, if speaking their language, which by the way, I always say it doesn't mean now have crappy grammar and start spelling horribly. Little side note to that, when I was talking to a great radio station a couple of months ago, I said, emulate the fans' dialogue. That's how you fit in. You don't type out, Nugent tickets 215, because that's not how we even talk in real life. Emulate the fans' dialogue. Speak the way they speak. So all of a sudden, this is a 30-year-old heritage classic rocker, great street cred in the city. I see a post that goes up, and it says, what you, the letter U for the word you, what you doing, like the number 2, and then night. It looked like, my 13-year-old texting. I go, what the hell is going on? And I never, ever call a PD. That's not my purpose or my position, but I did. What's going on? He said, I'll find out. He calls back later and said, well, the jock said you said to emulate the dialogue, so they're going to start spelling like the classic rock listeners spell. And so I always laugh every time I say emulate the dialogue. I think about that and have to kind of share that. It doesn't mean, take on their horrible grammar and spelling. It means talk the way that they talk. It's about fitting in. Yes?
Quick question. Among the top 5 you have on both Twitter and on Facebook, is news and information. What is the definition that you were using when you put news and information on this?
That's a great question. That'll be a question that I'll ask Fred when I get back. Let's exchange emails. My hunch is it's
news and information.
General news and information.
And this has 220 radio stations in across 12 formats. Mm-hmm. If we were to look at this by the news and information stations, and we do break it out this way in the overall presentation, look a lot different. That's why keeping up with sports is all the way at the top. Twitter's bigger than Facebook. We know that with sports stations, Twitter's huge.
Right.
And so if we were to look at it just through that format filter, it would look a lot different. So the fact that news and information is that strong, I would imagine if you looked at it by format,
So you think it cuts across other formats, though, while people may not want to have a strong news information component in, say, for music format, are they still interested in that if the station were to distribute it through Twitter or Facebook?
Yeah, so here's what I find. News radio and sports radio, Facebook's not really the playground. They appreciate it, they'll appreciate the story, but the gentleman before really nailed it when he said news is a commodity. They can really kind of get news anywhere. So I'm thinking I was fascinated when I first saw this. I saw it with TAQ in Green Bay in 2009 when I set them up with Twitter and Facebook simultaneously. Nothing was ever happening on Facebook, but there would be 2, 3, 4, 5 people that would interact with them on Twitter. And I remember talking to the PD about it, like, this is really fascinating. I wonder if news talk, if Facebook's not the playground, but this Twitter, and remember how young this was. This was 2009. Twitter had only been around for a couple of years. Fast forward 2014, it's what I'm seeing completely. I have a sports station that they want to be on Facebook so bad because they don't really like Twitter, which is completely backwards. And they keep fighting, they keep asking, why don't people like our stuff on Facebook when we share? We're a sports station, we're sharing sports content. We're telling our story, we're sharing our values. And I keep saying the same thing. Look, there's no expert in this field. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you what I know and what I see every single day. And that when it comes to sports and news, perhaps because it is a commodity, and because, remember, even though the news number might be a little bigger for your news radio station, the overwhelming majority of why they're on Facebook is because of friends and family. So it's fascinating. But Twitter, if you really focus on a strategy for your news stations there, Twitter will never scale the way Facebook does. So it will always be smaller, where you can get hundreds of likes on Facebook, you'll get a couple of retweets and favorites on Twitter. You have to accept that. You got to kind of harness the ego and go, okay, this is what it is. It's a smaller platform, but it's more effective, very much so. It's about fitting in. It's about believing what you see when you see it, just like kind of what we're talking about. If you continue to share news on Facebook and nobody's interacting with it, you have to kind of study what's going on. Is it the approach? Are you talking to radio-y, talking to newsy, or do they just not want it? Do they want visuals? Do they want pictures? Do they want behind-the-scenes pictures? Do they want pictures about town? We have to keep hacking our way to our purpose on these platforms. We can't just keep doing what we're doing. If nobody's interacting with you on Facebook, you have to take the hit that the ego takes, and you have to change things up. You have to keep finding. What I love about Facebook is nobody can tell you what works. Every single Facebook like page has a different audience, very much so. So what works for your news station may not work for the news station in Green Bay. You have to keep hacking your way to what works. And sometimes in radio, we are guilty of looking for best practices. We are looking for who does what in Charlotte and who does what in Chicago. And that is such the wrong approach. We have to take ownership, and we have to hack our way to what works for our fans. Because social is personal. This is another great takeaway I would love for you to remember. Social is personal. This is what they're doing. They are sharing on Facebook pictures of their wedding day, or they are tweeting out how they just kicked cancer, and they are cancer-free for 5, 10, 15 years. Social is personal. For the most part, it is what they're doing. And that's why I love the stat so much that says, overwhelmingly, we're on Facebook because of friends and family. Social is personal. But what do we do as brands? And this is not exclusive to radio. It's all over the place. This is what we do. While people are tweeting about the weather and frizzy hair and this and that, this is what we're doing. Hey guys, we're interrupting. Know the phrase that pays, and win. And remember, go back to the stat where you saw how little contesting meant to the radio core on the social platforms. Look at this. We're throwing out the same crap we throw out everywhere else on these social platforms. Keep up with all things fresh, right? And, trying to get people to sign up for the database. Look at this one. sharing a client's status update. But most importantly, there's no interaction. There's nothing. People look at it, they put their hands up, and they walk away. All you're doing is chipping at the coolness that they used to think you had. You can't spam them. We can't throw the same garbage at them that we think we can. We can't craft status updates like we write recorded promos. We're doing that all too often. We have to really buy into the fact that social is personal. We have to remember why they're there, and we have to try and fit in. We have to stop looking at it as a free distribution platform, because it's not. It's harder than that. It's funny. We all did this, jumping into the social space. There were no rules. There were no handbooks. Whether it was 2007, 8, or 9, whenever you jumped on Facebook, all you knew is how you personally used it. There was no teaching about it. I feel very lucky that Duke Wright, great story. When I was with Clear Channel for 15 years, and it really was a great time. In 2008, we parted ways, and I thought it was my chance, rather than to go down the bunny trail of PD, here. This was my opportunity to kind of go study what I really loved. I loved the digital space, and the social space at that point was kind of MySpace, which is horrible to admit, but that's what I loved. I loved the dynamic of the radio station and the fans talking on this MySpace platform. People would put me down. They're like, "What are you doing why is your radio station on MySpace?" And I said, "I don't know, but I feel like I'm supposed to be there." I still remember saying that. I didn't know, but I felt like I was supposed to be there. I felt like there was change happening. I just didn't know what was happening. So I pack up, move back home to Green Bay, Wisconsin, with my daughter in tow, and meet up with Duke Wright, Midwest Communications. We have a great hour-long interview. Remember, this is 2008, and it's still so confusing. And he said, "I don't really know what you just got done talking about, but you're so excited, I can't not hire you. So you just come on aboard, Michael, his son. Michael, you just give her an office, and you just do what you have to do." And I laughed so hard. It was such a great moment of honesty, that none of us really knew. I just kind of had built this business plan, like I had all the time in the world to build it, and I didn't even know what I was doing. You look back at that business plan, and it's so completely dated, it's scary, and that's just a few years ago. The point is, it's okay that we did this, these examples you're looking at. It's okay that we used to do this, and maybe that we're still doing it today. What's not okay is when you finally understand why people are using social and you still do this, then that's a problem. Yes?
You bring up a very interesting point. Murdoch, when he acquired MySpace, paid, I don't know how many billions of dollars for it. And here we are 5 years later, and that's the first time I've heard the word spoken, probably in 4 or 5 years. What happened? I mean, is it just the fact that Zuckerberg has a better mousetrap, or what transpired?
There's probably, everybody probably has their own thoughts. My thoughts really, the privacy issue became something, ironically enough, in the world we live in today. But the pedophiles that were kind of taking over MySpace, that was really, as from a parent's point of view, that was problematic. There was no way to, there was no real privacy, not like there is today. But it was,
There's no privacy today.
yeah. It was very interesting. Maybe that was the beginning of people realizing, oh, this stuff that's online, it's out there. We really are more accessible than we realize, and so are our children. There probably are better answers than that. What I saw happening with Zuckerberg when he opened up Facebook, there was anticipation. It was just for college kids at the time. I remember in 2007, people talking about, the younger kids at the radio station talking about it, and I would just roll my eyes because I was a typical PD then. I wanted nothing to do with that crap because I had a mothership to run. So there was anticipation among the young. When he opened it up in 2007 for everybody, it was no longer a college student platform, it was everybody. Mostly the younger kids jumped on it, and it was so, it was so seamless. It was very easy to use. It wasn't clunky, like sometimes music would come on MySpace. There were all these different boxes that you had to fill in MySpace, and it was very loud and kind of hard on the eye. Here comes Facebook, and it was just a stream. It was just a stream of thoughts, and they were your friends. They weren't strangers and weirdos and perverts that you were kind of joining in the party. It was just, you controlled who you saw. And I think that for the younger end was appealing. You controlled the messages that you saw coming into your live feed. And then around 2008, 2009, is when us older folk were joining and, grossing out the kids. But that's really what I think. Everybody jumped on it because word of mouth, but it was easy. It was easy on the eyes to use.
Did your kids get you involved in Facebook?
No, I oddly did. It's how I got involved with it is this. I had a radio station that was very niche. It was a big rock station, but it just wasn't working in Baltimore. Baltimore is saturated, not just with rock, but with male-dominated formats. It just didn't need my radio station. They're satisfied with the 98 Rocks and the BALs and even the other stations that come in from DC. So we flipped my radio station from rock to smooth jazz. We figured there's a huge urban audience there. This will be a great format. I didn't know anything about the format, but they said, look, you're the hardest working person here, just figure it out. So I'm kind of a scrapper. I'm a competitor, very much so. And there came a point in the radio station's life where Clear Channel stripped all the marketing money, and my ego couldn't lose. And that's where I became attracted to the social space, is I thought, if I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down, at least trying. And that's when I jumped on MySpace. I was trying to find every outlet I could, and remember, this is 2007, 2008. I was trying to find every outlet I could to touch whoever I could. Ultimately it didn't work, because again, social's not there to save us. If there's something fundamentally wrong with the brand, social, it's not a magic wand. It's there to complement what people already love. It's not there to save you. But that's how I got involved.
What happened to the station?
Went up in flames, Memorial Day 2008. It was too hard. It was interesting when PPM was being tested in Philly. I got to be a part of that. And I was watching DAS and some of the other great urban radio stations go from first to 10th. And this was 2006, 2007. And I remember telling some of my colleagues at Clear Channel, wow, PPM's gonna be the death of urban radio and smooth jazz. Those are my exact words. And they said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Of course, I'm a girl, I don't. I would, very vocal. But I believed it. And as it kept getting tested and then eventually rolled out, sure enough, there goes urban, there goes smooth jazz. Urban, it ends up working out because it's got a larger cume. It's more mass appeal than smooth jazz. But one by one, I saw that format just take a hit, and it was no surprise to me. I saw it happening probably 2.5 years before the station actually flipped. But that's how I got involved with social. So I was kind of a scrapper. I didn't want to lose.
Laura, you're being too hard on yourself. You had a very great sounding radio station, and Clear Channel hated the format.
Yeah.
And we all got pressured to get out of the format.
Well, I have to tell you, I was telling Paul last night when we were going back, thank you, by the way. I don't know if I've ever thanked you for the notes of acknowledgement or if you would ever remember. When I was a baby PD, I really didn't know what I was doing. I thought I had everybody fooled, I don't know what I'm doing. Great story. My GM said, all right, well, go find the, what did he say? The HDBA. Go get the HDBAs for me and come back. I didn't know what the hell HDBA. I was like, what the? I went to Google, HDBA. Nothing's coming up in Google. And I'm like, good Lord, I can't ask the guy another question. And I sat there just laying on my chair, and it hit me. Could it be high density black area? I don't know, just hit me we're after African Americans. And I didn't know what I was doing, but thank you, because your notes, you emailed me a couple of times, and this kind of goes back to the social space. how you made me feel. You kind of kept me like, oh my gosh, John Guerin thinks I'm doing a good job. I have everybody fooled, this is sweet, and I would skip down the hallway.
She is being modest, because a lot of people knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
You did
Thank
have a
you.
reputation, and it was a very positive reputation.
Thank you. So that's how I got involved with social. But talking about it, I know that you guys all know this. With social, you are all business people, and you are all great business people. With social, to get value from it, you have to give value. It's as clean as that. There's no tricks. There's no tips I can give you. To give value, to get it, you have to give it. And you have to commit to this. People don't want to be sold. They want to feel welcomed. And I'm using Major League Baseball as an example today because it is one of the best. There's kind of a lot of correlations happening right now between Major League Baseball and radio. The formats that have audiences that are aging, but yet we're still trying to attract the younger. You can't tell me that Major League Baseball, with the millions of likes that they have on Facebook, that they don't want to write status updates. Buy these damn tickets now. We're having problems with people coming to the ballpark. Buy tickets here, buy tickets there, buy. You know that they want to say that on Facebook. They're looking at millions of people right there on that platform, that one platform alone. They're looking at millions of people. You know they want to say that. But they understand the essence, the core of social. They understand you have to give value in return of getting it. So they tell great stories. For a visual, anytime that you hear somebody say, tell your story on social, go to Major League Baseball's Facebook page. Just look it out. It's the best visual. There's nothing that I can say, there are no words that I can say that explains what telling your story socially means. All you got to do is look at Major League Baseball. NFL for that matter too, if you want to look at the National Football League's Facebook page. They're always telling the stories about the players, the coaches, the fans, the stadiums, the history, the rivalries. Both MLB and NFL do a great job. They don't, as much as they want to, they don't spam. They tell the stories. Major League Baseball, I was listening to a guy, I wish I could remember his name, but last week he was speaking at some conference and he said something that you just don't realize, that they are dealing with an aging issue. The average age of an MLB fan is like 46, which is not old, but for some reason that's scaring them, that's the average age of the guy who goes to the ballpark. The average age of the fan of Major League Baseball's fan cave, are you all aware of that? The kind of fan cave, it's a digital thing that they create where they bring kids in, really, and interact with the games and the fans digitally and socially. The average age of Major League Baseball's fan cave is 23. So they've got the average age of the person going to the ballpark is 46. The average age of the people interacting with them digitally and socially is 23. The guy's like, we got a problem. We can't merge these two people because they're very different people. The guy going to the ballpark is, probably stuck away from the wife and kids for a couple of hours just to grab a beer and a hot dog and watch the game. And then the kids, they don't want to go to the game because they love their devices. They've got they've got their phone and their iPad and, the TV or radio for that part. 4 devices, listening, watching, interacting. They don't need that. The younger end doesn't need the live experience that we all know is worthwhile. So that's why I use Major League Baseball as an example for radio today. There are a lot of correlations between that league and what we're dealing with the aging fan. Bringing it back to social, watch how they interact. They constantly tell the values of what we hold in that brand. Something else that we're missing in radio, and it's interesting, and I have a theory why we're missing it, is personalized acknowledgement. Not just acknowledging fans. I mean, you can acknowledge fans on Twitter and Facebook all day by liking something or saying thank you, and that's fine. I mean, People will appreciate that. But it's the personalized, fun acknowledgement that makes you stand out from the pack. One of my favorite examples is Dateline NBC's Josh Mankiewicz. I stumbled on this guy a year ago. I didn't even know, I would never admit to him, but I didn't even know who he was. Most of us just know Keith Morrison, the creepy voice guy. But here's Josh. I mean, he's been there the longest, and his story is fascinating. So many of us have never heard of him, but his reputation continues, his profile continues to elevate because of his use of Twitter. He talks like this all of the time. When somebody's like, I would give my left arm for Keith Morrison to record a message, they were doing a contest of, tweet us who you want to leave a message on your voicemail. That's what this is referencing to. And, Josh noticed this. The tweet's not really about him, but he still acknowledges because it's about Dateline. He understands it's about the brand, not about him personally. Where he says that, really won't be necessary, maybe just your thumb. And, the guy's like, oh, small price to pay, love Keith. Oh, and you kind of too, awkward laugh. Josh could have let it go, but he responded with, very awkward. Makes the fan laugh, connects him closer to Dateline, not necessarily him. And I have to tell you, in January, right before the Olympics have kind of killed it for them for a while, but I have to believe it's their use of Twitter. In January, Dateline hit its highest ratings with persons 1835. Now, Dateline's kind of for me, the 40-year-old that has a glass of wine and on a Friday and, maybe on Twitter acting cool, but really I'm not. I'm just laying there watching Dateline. They hit a milestone with persons 1835. Again, there's no direct correlation, but you can't not deny that this year-long strategy that they've put into Twitter is not exciting and, kind of raising the curiosity level of the younger demo.
Was that during the Olympics when they had all the pseudo-X Games type stuff?
Yeah.
See, I think there again, it's content. I think the kids were into watching those new, competitions. That was more their thing.
Yes.
But that's what drove it, probably.
Yep,
Yeah.
very much so. So personalized acknowledgement, and this is really where radio could stand out. The Pandoras of the world, they can't do this. When somebody tweets, I love listening to Riff. When somebody just tweets that out loud, it's really our privilege, but kind of our responsibility to say something back to that person and freak them out. It is, and I'll show you a story of freak out in just a second, but it blows your mind when people that you see as bigger as you acknowledge you. And again, it makes you feel seen, it makes you feel heard. One of the writers of House of Cards, is anybody a fan of House of Cards here? So
I know, I'm done. I can't do this for next year.
I love that. I'm racing to watch the last one because I have somehow, I've missed all of the spoiler people. But I have one episode to go. Love that. You know how passionate you are about the show. So
Kill whoever tries to spoil it for you.
So I wrote about House of Cards for my column in All Access. It was last season. Remember Hammerschmidt, where he's like, I will not be distracted by what's fashionable. He was putting down Twitter and blogs and Zoe Barnes and all of that stuff. I will not be distracted. And I kind of correlated it to radio, TV, and print. I will not be distracted by it. So, but what I did is I added, you have a Twitter handle. That's your identity on that platform. And so I added his Twitter handle on the tweet when I was tweeting the article out. So Bo Willimon, he not just retweeted the article, which that was huge, he followed me back. And I remember saying, I can't believe we live in a world where my day has been made because this guy that writes for House of Cards now follows me on Twitter. I guarantee you he never, ever, ever sees any of my tweets. But I feel important now. I feel big. I can say, I can't believe this. Yeah, one of the writers for House of Cards follows me on Twitter. That sounds so lame, but that's where we're getting some of our validation. So, it's kind of where where we're going. Jeff Bezos, everybody knows him. If you want value, if you want to derive value from social, you've got to put some of these fundamentals in place, you know, whether it's telling stories like we talked about with Major League Baseball, whether it's personalized acknowledgement. When you put these things in place, you have fans in it for the long haul. They are more forgivable and they anticipate you. And isn't that what you want? We're not perfect as brands. We're not always going to hit it out of the park. We're going to play the wrong songs. We're going to say the wrong things. We're going to hire the wrong people. But when you make fans feel like they matter, they're in it for the long haul. NFL is a great example of creating fans and what they're doing always to maintain that fan base. You've always got to ask yourself, why is it necessary? Why would people listen to you? Why? When your team, ask your team to ask themselves this. When they are composing Facebook status updates or tweets, you've got to ask your team to ask themselves, why should people listen to you? Are you regurgitating what you just said on the radio? Are you pinging your Facebook to Twitter? Are you being lazy or are you being dynamic? And that is the truth. There's nothing easy about being social. There's a difference in doing social and being social, and there's nothing easy. I can tell you the ego makes social the worst thing on the planet. When you say something socially and nobody responds, you sit back and go, I'll give it 5 more minutes. And I can't believe I'm admitting this, but this is what we do. I'll give it 5 more minutes. I bet somebody will like it. And I'm kind of looking over as I'm working, I'm looking over at the screen and I can't, and then I delete it. After 10 minutes and nobody did anything with it, I'm like, well, I'll just delete it because maybe nobody saw it and I'll repost it in another way. It's almost like performing. And you've got to understand how hard it is. Share this with your team. It's okay to admit that it's not easy. Even somebody in my position, I feel so privileged, again, because I get to study this over and over, and I study, again, more human behavior than platforms. Anybody can jump on Pinterest, Facebook, and do it. I study how to be it. And still to this day, I stumble. So if somebody who gets to study the human interaction, the dynamic social interaction that happens, if somebody like me stumbles every day and doesn't hit it out of the park every day, you can't expect your team to do so. But you've got to allow them to be flawsome. It's one of my favorite words. It means being flawed and awesome simultaneously. Tell them, you are my flawsome team. Now go out there and suck and love it and be great. And when you hit it out of the park, template it. Figure out what it was so that we remember it, so that we can study what the fans like. But allow them to be flawsome. Allow them to be flawed. Because we're never, ever going to get it right. It's just too hard. This is a great example of, again, when going back to the emulating the fans dialogue. This is how you get value. Taco Bell is a great brand to watch. They're on Snapchat, something that we didn't necessarily need to talk about today, but it's really for the kids. It's kind of like the 13, 25-year-old platform. But listen to what Kendra says. Taco Bell just Snapchatted me this. They get me. When I saw that tweet, I went, I will use that forever. They get me. That should be one of the goals of your brands, not playing the best music, the #1 hit music radio station, or the classic rock and more. It should be, they get me. Your radio station should get them socially. When you make people feel like they have been seen, heard, like you get them, that's when you win them. And again, the hardest thing in your position is there's no direct correlation between really higher ratings and hitting it out of the park socially. But you can't deny that Kendra didn't go get a taco that same day or the next because of that small little Snapchat interaction. Define a strategy. I'd leave you with this. The best thing that you can do when you get back is get the people around you that will speak for your brand socially. Everybody does not have to be in the room. It's the people who will speak for your brand socially. Define the strategy. Think back to why they're there. Also look at where are they. We know they're on Facebook. Twitter is slowly rising, so for the appropriate formats, go to Twitter. Instagram is slowly rising. Let research inform your strategy. Don't let somebody, just because they're a millennial, inform your strategy. There's something very scary that's also happening universally, not just with radio. We have a tendency to look at the millennials like, oh, we'll hire the 25-year-old because they grew up with this. Well, remember this, the wisdom that comes with age is priceless. And many times the millennials do not have the sophistication, nor do they have the business sense to be speaking for your brand. They may have grown up with Facebook, but my daughter has no business speaking for any of your brands, ever, really. So don't confuse millennials as the experts. You have to find people who are just inherently social. They can be 25, but find the people who are inherently social. Find the people within your building, whether they're 25 or 60. Who are the people who wake up every day and want to do something good for somebody else? Who are the people that believe every person counts? Who are the people in your businesses that believe, they never want to miss an opportunity to be good to people? Those are the people that should be running your social assets. So when you are back at your radio stations, you've got the meeting, you're going to define a strategy for social. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with, because those are the people that will make a difference for you. Another thing that's part of your strategy that I would highly encourage.
Slide up there 1 second.
Yes.
You're gonna distribute these to us, we'll get to keep, this will be in your package, won't it, Jim?
Yes.
No, but I'm just trying to get it now.
Just take a picture.
Okay, thanks.
That's,
Yeah, what's really scary, you look at Instagram, and Lori and I were joking about this the other day. Instagram is very young, okay? Late teens, early 20s. And there's a classic rock station that shall go unnamed that recently, in the past 2 weeks, did an Instagram promotion giving away a hat at 5 o'clock. And they participated in this study, so we pulled up their individual station data for Instagram, and I think it was, 1.5%.
yeah.
But, and that's what Lori means about strategy, is that just because it's there doesn't mean you should do it. Okay, every one of these platforms has a pretty distinct use and
Yeah.
fit.
Another part of your strategy is monitoring what people are saying. It's critical for us to get ahead of the conversation, not be way so far behind that fans or trolls are telling our story in a very wrong way. One of my favorite tools, it's free, it's called Topsy, TOPSY.com. Just get the email alerts, set it up for your radio stations. Not necessarily how you define your radio station, but how do people call your radio station? So if your radio station is 94.7 WCSX, how do people actually identify the radio station when they're writing posts out? They probably just say WCSX. So in that case, I don't look for 94.7, I just look for WCSX. How people call you by your radio station is how you want to. But with Topsy is very, very expensive. It's one of the best out there. And I love that Apple recently bought Topsy. So it just kind of validated to me, I know how to find the free platforms. But Topsy is a great, don't get sucked into its $30,000 pitch, like one radio company did. I forgot to say, get the free email alerts. All I said was go to Topsy. They went to Topsy and they said, yeah, give us $30,000 and we'll monitor your brands. And then they came back to me and I went, I left something out. Get the free email alerts.
Can you give me their name? There's something I'd like to sell them.
Yeah. So make sure you put that in your strategy, is that it's important to listen. If we're actually going to have conversation, exchange, interaction with fans, we got to listen to what they're saying. And we also have to absolutely define a system of acknowledgement. It can get overwhelming. If people start talking about us a lot, it can get overwhelming, and we start picking and choosing who gets a response. But every person matters, right? so everybody gets a response. If Taco Bell can do it, we as local radio stations should be doing it better. Not as many people are talking about us just because of the scale level. Not as many people are talking about us socially as local radio stations as they are as Taco Bell. Taco Bell's got it down because in part of their strategy, there's a system of acknowledgement, and we've got to figure out what that is. Speaking of acknowledgement, I wanted to share this story with you. This is the power of where social is taking customer service, and radio really needs to tune into this. I was on hold for an hour recently with Delta, and again, this is embarrassing because think about it. This is what I do for a living, but I still don't think about it as much as I think that I should. I'm on the phone for an hour. 59 minutes later, it hits me, oh, tweet them. And so I just tweeted Delta, you know, probably something kind of snarky, but not too mean because I knew people would see it, but just kind of like I've been on hold for an hour. Within seconds, this tweet showed up in my app box at Twitter. Sorry for the cancellation. Follow and DM. DM means direct message. You can send each other private messages on Twitter if we can help. And I just shook my head. I was so embarrassed because I knew what was about to happen. I spent an hour on the phone. Delta on Twitter did what the phone and email could not do. I said, trying to get to Minneapolis tomorrow. Flight's been canceled. I understand bad weather. Any chance you can get me on another flight? She says, where? I'm like, from Detroit to Minneapolis. She says, hey, there's a 145 getting in there too. You want that one? Yes, that would be great. These screenshots here took like 60 seconds. The 59 minutes I sat on the phone, because again, I'm not thinking, and I work in this space, this took probably 1-2 minutes. And all of a sudden, my life was much better. Delta just, and you know, think about all the people that I told this story to. The word of mouth that everybody's always talking about. This is what we want to go after, is the customer service. But we have to believe that people count.
You know, the phone is social media too, in a way. And isn't Delta making a terrible mistake if the bulk of their users are phone users and expecting them to do this? It seems like they're really doing a greater disservice to more people than a service to them.
You know, it's a great point. I'm not sure they're expecting people to do this. I think that they just have manned Twitter. You know, it was...
Manned Twitter is better than the phones.
You know what I should have said? This was one of those bad storms where everybody's flight got canceled. So Delta was overwhelmed with the traditional phone. The email response didn't even come for a day. The next morning is when I got, hey, how can I help you? I'm like,
think of Twitter as a communication vehicle.
Well, not enough of us, obviously.
Right.
so what's fascinating is they're looking at Twitter the way that I hope that we all look at Twitter, and it's dynamic customer service.
How amazing, though, that there was somebody there
Yeah.
to respond to your tweet.
Probably the Maytag repairman will over the tweet from.
Yes, I didn't even know it. I just kind of,
Brilliant. So you
so,
were frustrated, you just wanted to get your thought out.
yes.
Basically.
And there was somebody, and again, the misconception is that it was, I think why I didn't initially tweet is I didn't want to talk to a social media person. And that's what I thought, I thought it'd just be like Amy on the other end of Twitter, like, bummer dude. Like, I didn't want that, so I just didn't go there. I didn't know they had actual ticket agents at Twitter. Yeah. Hashtag that sucks. I'll leave you with this, social media and listening. It absolutely, the end result can be fan acquisition. It may not bring you revenue at the end of the day, but absolutely fan acquisition. We asked this question. I was nervous about asking it, but we asked it. I find myself listening more to stations that interact with me socially. All you got to do is answer one of these. 30% agree. As you see, the 20% agree. 10% strongly agree. Again, most of this was women, and most of it was the younger generation. But fan acquisition absolutely can happen if we make people feel like they matter. We just have to believe that we no longer operate in the era of entitlement. We are not entitled to big, social, active fan bases. We are not entitled to anything anymore. We're great radio bands. We're not going anywhere. People will still consume us and love us, but we're no longer entitled. We operate in the era of earn. We must now harness the ego and earn every single person who will interact with us socially. We have to earn it. And then even when we earn it, we then have to maintain it. We have to stop looking at how many likes we have and how many followers we have, and we have to start earning the interaction of the people who already like us and who already follow us. And lastly, there's no tips, there's no tricks. Social is a way of thinking. Social media is not a trick. It's a way of thinking. So the next time you see tips and tricks and best practices, think of me and think of this. Social is a way of thinking. And with that, I thank you.